All right, welcome back to the JD Hill Show. And real quick, don't forget Saturday, Bon Appetit. Please give Sean a call and put in your orders for the dinners. We want to build him up and his company, Bon Appetit. And that number is area code 313-444-5048. Please give him a call and let's continue to build up our entrepreneurs. Give me a call if you want to support a reliable brother in the community with the African Easy Silk product line and the liquid biocell for your internal health. And that number to contact me is area code 313-296-5578. Area code 313-296-5578. And or the Inkster store where you can contact Miss E, the daughter of the hair doctor, and that number is area code 313-277-2319. Okay, I'm going to be making a transition, and one of those brilliant minds that I mentioned, or two that we have here, I'll be coming on in just a few minutes when I go to the next break. And so get ready for Richard Harrison, and I believe Brenda Perriman. Oh, okay, well, no. But however, get ready for Richard Harrison. And till next time, remember, keep praying, just keep moving forward, support, support, support. I love you, and I'll see you next time.
Take nothing less than the supreme best. Do not obey, you must be forsake, but we can pass the test.
U33BY, Detroit, Highland Park, Michigan.
Fake Friends. Behind the scenes of the new dance show. Written by Mike Matthews.
Talking about my friends. How many of us are real friends?
Hey, it's LaWanda. Guess what? I'm going to be on radio and TV. I want you to be with me every Wednesday between the hours of 6 and 8 p.m. You and I, right here. WHPR TV 33.
It's Fake Friends. Written by Mike Matthews. Behind the scenes of the new dance show.
I'm going to give you the updates on this new sitcom entitled Fake Friends. I'm going to have my real friends with me on my show. I'm talking about Mr. R.J. Watkins and none other than Mr. Henry Tyler.
The sitcom Fake Friends.
I'm going to dish the dirt whose baby is that as I sip my tea.
Who you calling fake?
Can we all just get along?
I'm minding my business. I'm just telling yours.
The new sitcom Fake Friends. Only on 107.3 FM. WVIE Virgin Islands. Simulcasting on Comcast. Channel 91 and TV 33.
Lord, I'm just sitting here looking over my life, Lord. Let me take inventory. Can I take it? Can I take it? Cause I know you. I know you. I know you've been good to me, Lord. Good morning and welcome to the JD Hill Morning Show. My name is Richard Harrison. I want to thank you for joining me today. I get a chance to come in, I guess, between Wednesday and Monday. To get a chance to stop in on Friday is kind of a good way to check in, especially when you look at what has occurred politically, what has occurred during this election. My goodness, there's so much to talk about in anticipation of what a Trump administration will begin to look like. He said so much. There's so many things that have caused folks to be concerned. You have any number of cities, Oakland, California, Washington, Portland, Oregon, just the number of cities that have actually, I guess, generated these protests, or protests have been generated in these cities in protest of the Trump administration, the anticipated Trump administration because I guess it has been characterized, and it's from his own doing, as being racist and xenophobic and misogynistic. And there are a number of protests that have actually violent protests, folks that actually were arrested in Oakland and in Portland on last evening. Sending the message that if what you have talked about doing your campaign is what you are going to attempt to implement, well, there's going to be some resistance in the community. In fact, these folks have talked about maybe there are some people who might change their vote for the Electoral College. I mean, it's a process that still has to take place. The first Monday, the first Monday after the second Wednesday in December is when the Electoral College is going to come together and actually cast their vote for the new president. There are 14 states that actually their delegates are committed to vote in accordance with the results of the votes in those states. So it is conceivable, not likely to happen, but it is conceivable that if these folks went into the conclaves, I guess, and decided, once they take their votes, decided that they wanted Hillary Clinton for whatever reason, there are states already where electoral candidates, electoral college delegates, that's the best way to put it, they could actually cast their vote for Hillary Clinton, and not likely to happen, but they could cast a vote for Hillary Clinton, and Trump would be denied the opportunity to become president, because we have this system, an archaic system, a rather distressing system that's not even duplicated in any democracy throughout the planet other than here in the United States. It was Alexander Hamilton who came up with this idea of the Electoral College, thinking that you could not leave the choice of who would be the president in the hands of mere citizens. And you have to think about, we came from a system. It's been a system that has really evolved, but it evolved from the idea that not everyone should have the right to vote. Women should not have the right to vote. Former kidnapped and Africans who were forced into labor, free labor, have been characterized historically as slaves. They did not and should not be given the right to vote. In fact, only landowners should have the right to vote. And so it was that premise, it's that idea that evolves this idea of the Electoral College. It should be just eliminated. Now, there's a way that it possibly could be eliminated. It would take 26 states, I believe it is. Already there are 14 states that right now have really locked their delegates from the Electoral College into whatever the population says, or however that population voted. Then they are locked into casting the vote that reflects what that particular how that particular population has voted. It is my understanding that if 26 states actually, I guess, created the same kind of legislation, then you would really have enough which could easily bypass a constitutional convention, a process where the Constitution would be changed, and we could have a situation where the entire nation would be compelled to eliminate this idea of electoral college, and we would have what is really one man, one vote that would be effective. Right now, it's layered, and it's layered with this electoral college, and that's that's the lie, I guess we get it, and you have some people who understand it, and when they say that there's no sense in voting, my vote does not count anyway. Well, to some extent, they are telling the truth. So maybe we move in that direction as a nation one day. I think it's a long way off. There are issues here in Michigan. I know we talked about it on Wednesday. Derek Wilcoxon brought it up a couple of times, and it talked about how the Hillary Clinton campaign kind of called at the last minute to all of these radio stations, television stations that they felt were independent. We were one, and they asked, "Can you do something extra? Can you actually get your people to get involved and create, I guess, a message that can get people out the vote?" Because people in Detroit, in Michigan, are not turning out the vote, and they're not turning out the vote for Hillary Clinton. Well, I'm sure most stations decided, and we're probably in that number. Most stations decided, no, we're not going to do that. You know, you guys had the opportunity to come in and to campaign, and we're not going to make up for your mistakes because you did not initially put the kind of resources into Detroit and into Michigan. And now in the 11th hour, you want us to kind of rescue your bacon. Well, rightfully so. Folks said no. They saw themselves in trouble. Apparently, they saw themselves in trouble. I guess it was in a while. I guess when the president was coming out, and then they enlisted the first lady to come out. You know, that was clear indication that it was a desperation move. And I really think they saw this thing coming down the pipeline. As with the Trump campaign, they really saw the possibilities of what they were going to be able to accomplish. And in fact, they were effectively able to get it done. But there are some things that I guess we can look that will be different. You got General Motors that have already sent a letter to Donald Trump asking for relief from these emission control legislations that have been imposed on, and I think it was probably done by way of executive order, maybe some legislation that supports it. But they are asking for relief. They are saying that we cannot meet the standards that have been imposed by the Obama administration. Please give us some relief so we don't have to have the emission controls that we've been subject to, and allow our vehicles that we produce to continue to pollute at the same level that we're manufacturing them. Isn't that something? I mean, we've just fined, is it Volkswagen this enormous amount of money because I guess they lied about their the emissions from their some of their vehicles. What's the oil? I mean, what's the gas? It's not regular gas. It's the other gas. I forget the name of it. Someone to tell me. But you know, they've been fined tremendous amount of money. By comparison, it's really not that much money. But they have already been fined, and you got General Motors that's already asking. I mean, you know, that's the kind of stuff when you talk about, you know, how we are supposed to respond. Well, citizens should think about that, and maybe we should reconsider buying a General Motors automobile. You know, it's the same thing when you look at what happened between A and B. Well, quite frankly, you know, how the Illiges have dealt with this situation of an executive order in the city that says 51% if you take tax dollars and if you take land, discounted land, and they got all of this prime land for $1, then you should give something back to the community, and the executive order says hire 51% of Detroiters. Well, they failed to do it. They were fined, and what that has done, that has completely wiped out, have completely made my taste for hot and ready's just totally eliminated. Now, I no longer buy hot and ready's. I'm not initiating a boycott or anything. I just refuse to buy hot and ready's. And maybe the same thing should happen with General Motors automobiles. Well, I don't buy them anyway. And I guess the other thing that I was thinking about, Donald Trump was talking about maybe we should drain the swamp. Well, maybe it's time to drain the swamp in the Democratic Party here in Michigan. We got we got all kind of what do you say? Unrecognizable democratic creatures that have been representing the interests of Detroiters and of Michigan for so long. And in fact, I guess many of them, and this is this new creature, many of them are Republicans who have disguised themselves as Democrats. Well, I think it was, what is the attorney's name? Jeffrey Feiger, who had indicated that Mike Duggan, as far as he knew, Mike Duggan was a Republican. You have the people who actually were given the money by the Hillary Clinton campaign and squandered the money, took care of their friends and families, I guess. Well, these are the folks, black folks who have been representing us for some time. Was it the Stalwarts? May have been one name that I've mentioned, I've heard in association with that. Well, I mean, there's an interesting history to look at anyway. I guess so. The gas emissions are going to change based on General Motors' plea to the Trump presidency. How about this? Detroit is a sanctuary city. And as a result of it, you have some comfort that immigrants are able to experience because they're in Detroit. And there are maybe some special kinds of limitations. Like, they cannot come and grab you at a hospital. They can't grab you at church. They can't come in. I'm talking about ICE. Supposedly they can't grab you at schools. And there are some other restrictions. How about one of the things that Trump had mentioned is that he was going to eliminate sanctuary cities right away, which means that cities that don't comply, then they may not get any federal dollars. Right now, we're receiving federal dollars that enable our mayor, we don't know if he's a Democrat or a Republican, our mayor to money that was converted from helping individuals with mortgages to demolition. Christ sakes. Well, I mean, our mayor has converted that money. The Obama administration actually has allowed it, and now we have a scandal that has been, I guess, adjusted to. But the point is that money no longer becomes available if you have a Trump administration that says cities, sanctuary cities, if you're not willing to comply, then we will stop the flow of federal dollars to that city. So that may be something we'll be seeing soon. The city's going to do it right away. Of course, there's going to be a wall that's built. We'll see how that develops as well. The idea that now you have immigration that's going to be truncated, I guess, to some extent. There's some restrictions, additional restrictions that would be imposed on it. And I guess what we may be looking at, and maybe this is why Trump figured that more jobs are going to be created. You already have unemployment down so low that it's practically at the level of full employment. Full employment is somewhere around 4%, and we are just below 5% now. So we're pretty close to full employment. So now you stop folks from coming in from India and from the Middle East and from some of these other countries. Well, they're not talking about these white countries imposing limitations, but some of these other countries. So maybe you will not go to the doctor anymore, and automatically every doctor that you run into is from Pakistan or from India or from somewhere in the Middle East, and because these restrictions are being imposed. And then if you're talking about all of these jobs that are now being handled by immigrant labor, my goodness, how about the farm workers and some of these factories, seasonal work that is actually being addressed by immigrants? Well, maybe that's going to be eliminated. And because, again, we're near full employment, and because this additional labor, cheap labor, is now being restricted, maybe that's what he means. Because we don't have this immigration and this competition from countries of skilled labor, especially from Pakistan and India and places like that, then maybe Americans now can have some of those jobs. And in the process, because the labor market has been constricted, it forces wages up. Because it was Claude Anderson who said that immigration actually impacts negatively wages of African Americans. I forget what the exact percentage was, but that's just one of the realities. So the impact is going to be significant. We'll see how this thing develops along the way. And maybe we are inspired here in Michigan. Maybe we should begin thinking about draining the swamps from these folks that we have representing us here in Michigan. 868-0351, 868-0342, and 868-4336. I'm going to the phone lines. Good morning, caller. You on the air?
Good morning, Richard. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for joining us.
Well, you know what? The outcome of the election is not going to rock my world. I mean, am I disappointed? Yes. But, I mean, Ray Charles said drowning my own tears. No, didn't even get to that point, and won't get to that point.
Okay.
But you know what? In terms of Trump, Trump's not going to do anything for this city, because if you notice, the time that he came here, all right, when he was down in Cobo, he didn't really say a whole lot. But where did he go? I can't even remember the name of the place that he went to, where he sat there and said all these disparaging things about the city. Okay. So, I mean, action speaks louder than words.
That's right.
And besides, the Donald Trump that started that race about 16 months ago to get to where he is today, the man that started that race, that's the true Donald Trump. I mean, his handlers are going to, give him a cocktail of Xanax and Valium and Xanax or Prozac, and they're going to cool him out and say, Donald, read the teleprompters and don't go off script. Now, what has Trump done with these demonstrations that have going on around the country? The fool gets on Twitter and sits there talking about these are professional protesters who basically have been goaded on by the media, and it's unfair. He sounds like, and I hate to insult children, but he sounds like some little kid, which he sounded like the whole, election, crying because things aren't going his way. People have not embraced me, or rather, you got some people out there who don't like me. Well, I mean, excuse me, you sit there, you insult women, you insult Muslims, you insult black folks, you insult Hispanics, you even insulted the handicapped. Now, I mean, come on, let's get real here. Why do you think those people would want to embrace you? But as far as him doing anything for this city, talking about, we're going to do whatever, my name is Thomas for a reason. Remember when, according to the Bible, that Thomas was walking around and he saw his buddies, the disciples, and they told him, "Hey, man, we just saw Jesus." And what did Thomas say? He said, "Until I can see the nail marks in his hand and put my hand in the side where he speared him, I'm not going to believe." I mean, that's just me. Seeing is believing.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Even with the rhetoric, and I guess we can try to assess exactly how much his rhetoric is going to be consistent with how he establishes and develops his administration. But when you look at all of the players, when you look at, Christie, Christie is a guy who was so oppressive as it relates to unions, and especially the teachers' unions. That could be an ominous kind of sign. How about the former mayor of
Giuliani?
Giuliani? Thank you.
Yeah.
Giuliani, and he continues to spout about the effectiveness of stop and frisk.
Yeah.
So he has some guys in waiting, that are perhaps as even more scary than he is, because he's only had the rhetoric. And these guys have actually done exactly what he has said that he would like to do in some of his campaign rhetoric. So, there are major changes that are on the way, I would suspect.
Yeah. But, though, in terms of, things being done, I'm going to personalize it. I mean, we all had people help us do things and get places. But for the most part, what Frank Sinatra say, I did it my way. I walked the straight and narrow. There were people along the way who, gave me a hand, not a handout, but, they were there when I needed them.
That's right. That's all of us.
But for the most part, you and I and people like us, we walked that road and we knew we had a destination to get to. And we saw that destination from where we were. And we walked until we got to that destination. And that's why I am now, happily retired and loving it, okay? But, in terms of, looking for Trump to do something, and I'm talking about the city, come on, get real here. Trump's in this thing for him. And talking about make America great again, America was great before Donald Trump was born, okay? And with him, and you've heard it and I've heard it, well, what are you talking about make America great again? You've been talking about back in the days when we were on the plantation picking cotton, and you all were reaping the benefits, and like they say, the cotton's high, fish are jumping, and the cotton's high. That's where Trump's coming from.
And that we're not necessarily talking about moving the clock back to that particular time, but I think one of the things that I think we can recognize is that Trump kind of made, I guess, a major splash, and it really happened with the Central Park a rapist situation, and he began to, I guess, spout this rhetoric that I thought was identified as being this angry white man, angry white men kind of a rhetoric, and basically what they were saying, they were accusing so many of minority populations as being folks who were gaming the system, folks who they were doing all the hard work, and then we were getting our freebies as it relates to what was going on. And it is that kind of attitude that I really do identify with Trump. So there are things that I think could happen. There are entitlement programs, food stamp programs could be impacted by it. You have so many of immigrants that have come in, and then a pretty large population that have been encouraged through the Obama administration to take advantage of Social Security disability, for example.
Right.
All of these Syrians who have now come in by way of, I guess, this new immigrant kind of surge to help these refugees from Syria. Well, they're here and they're receiving Social Security benefits. They're right here in Detroit receiving them. And because Obama could not put together a works program, then he sort of loosened the requirements so that folks could get on. So I'm saying that all of these things could also be impacted by Trump, because there was no jobs program, there was no works program, something that Hillary couldn't promise, actually. Then he manipulated the system in other ways to sort of turn on the spigot in the bathroom, I guess, instead of in the kitchen. So, I mean, there are some things that are going to happen, but I agree with you, it's not going to be earth-shaking in mine and your lives.
That's true. That's true. That's true, because, I mean, like after, when, I mean, I didn't see the final returns in terms of Tuesday night, okay? Because, I mean, I went ahead and I laid down and I went to sleep. And when I woke up and they said Trump had won, I'm going like, okay, and moving right on, it's like, in terms of what happens down in Washington, I mean, it doesn't filter down this far to me. I mean, yeah, I get my Social Security, but that's money that I put in there, okay? They ain't giving me nothing, all right? They held my money into an account, and now I'm reaping the benefit of that.
Well, but there's a 3% raise that you're going to be receiving in January, and you have to wonder, I received that same 3%, I want you to know, and you have to wonder if something like that could be impacted somewhere down the line, maybe in 2018, something like that could change. But 3%, it ain't that big of a deal.
No, I mean, it's not going to make me more.
I'm not going to miss a bill. Tom, I appreciate the call.
All right, thanks for taking the call.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yes. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning. Thank you.
You went over so much, and I had to figure out where I'm gonna come in here, but I appreciate the knowledge that you talked about this morning and just a while ago about what the policies of the president, the elect president, can have, and it's true. But now, when you look at what the situation, when you talked about the immigrants, well, when he suspends the Syrians refugees, I hate what's happening to them, the United States policies that bomb those countries into rubble.
That's right.
But we are poor here. We are refugees, black refugees in Detroit and the major cities. We cannot afford for them to come in and work at the stores, and our young people don't have no store. So in that sense, I agree with the policy to say, I'm looking at the black youth to have a job in the cities. I say that to suspend that will save our black youth to have a job and they can feed their black babies. Now, can what's his name? Trump? Can he save the country economically? A lot of people, he ain't talking about no less and all that stuff. He's talking about economics. The argument is that to save capitalism, his position, we must withdraw from the global scene and straighten out the national economy, and that can do it. We can save capitalism. Well, the other group is saying no. The only we cannot go back. We got to master the international globalization. That's the argument on the big thing. That's the argument. It ain't about women having the rights and all that stuff. So then I looked at the economy. When I looked at the economy, I heard you say about the unemployment. That's not the real economy. Because when they say unemployment is about full time, they're talking about in the labor force. In the labor force, only those who employed and those who's joined primarily unemployment. That's the labor force that they come up and say, oh, we got 4%. But
I
they
agree.
don't talk about the not in the labor force. Not in the labor force last year was 94 million people don't have no job, and they wasn't enjoying no unemployment. And each year, over 3 million college students and 3 million high school students, they come out of those high schools and can't get a job. So that makes not in the workforce grow. Now, can Trump straighten it out? Can the Democratic Party straighten it out? No, all of them put together can't straighten it out because the crisis of unemployment and recession springs from the organization of this economy. Say, for example, when you look at Ford and General Motors and them, they plan how many cars they're going to produce, how much raw material they're going to have. They got a managers tell you what to do. You got planned production. You got socialism inside General Motors and other automobile factories. But in Detroit as a whole, Detroit City Council do not tell neither one how much to produce, what to produce. So therefore, when all of them competing, they get as much cars they can so they can outsell the others on the market. Well, in the meantime, that caused overproduction. That's where crisis comes in. In overproduction, they lay workers off. So remember that roller coaster was in school they told us about?
Yes.
Prosperity, recession, depression, recovery,
Yes.
prosperity,
That's right.
recession, depression, recovery.
It is cyclical. That's right.
That roller coaster has stopped since 2009. The roller coasters have stopped in the depression, and guess what, Richard? 1.1%. That's the gross domestic product. Production is backing up to almost zero. That means that roller coaster now is going back to a recession instead of going through the recovery, because it never has since 2009. That means cycles, meeting cycles, and with over more people, over 139 million not in the workforce, and 129 million in the workforce, and 51% of those who's working make $30,000 or less by middle class. They are in poverty. So Trump cannot do that. That means next 4 years, those who backed Barry Sanders and those working people who backed Trump, they gonna come together, but they gonna come together for a third party and get rid of both the bourgeois parties, Democrats and Republicans. And those guys, those kids out there marching in the street don't have no understanding that, because they followed a guy named Bob the Bacon, who ran away from this country in the 70s and went to France, and he's got a theory to talk about anarchy. And that's why you're seeing with they masses and throwing and breaking windows. They are far away from understanding the economy, and if one don't understand the economy, that's why I appreciate you as a talk show host. You really go into the economy and talk about what is the bottom line of these ideas. The bottom line of the ideas of the economy.
You know what, Tyrone? The way you address it, you know, there is such a vibrant underground economy that I don't know if we have a real good sense of just how strong that economy is. And I'm not just talking about drugs, but I'm talking about jacklegs and folks that paint, that hustle, and the folks that fix cars, who will come to your house and who will fix cars. You know, these are not people that are starving. These are people who make the necessary adjustment. That they are not in the crime economy. They are just working, not paying taxes, and they're taking care of their families.
It's a big question, and I appreciate you. And that's what I see going down. In the next 4 years, you're going to have a mass unity of those back Sanders and those who's backing Trump. They're going to leave Trump.
I hope so. I hope so. And I hope in the same process, the African Americans here in Detroit, we can begin to look at that, and in the process, we can drain the swamp. I'm glad Trump, maybe that's the only legacy that he leaves us, this idea of draining the swamp here in the Democratic Party. I appreciate your call. Thank you so much. There's this whole question about, I guess, Trump defying globalism and not getting involved in activities. It could be trade or protection all over the planet. But when you talk about capitalism is kind of it is the marriage and economic and social intercourse of all of these countries that really participate in everybody else's economy. My goodness, half of all of the bonds that are sold, treasury bonds, are controlled by other countries. My goodness, China has 19% of treasury bonds that are sold by the U.S. government. Japan has 17%. Saudi Arabia and many of these other countries that control oil dollars and have oil wealth. They control a part or they participate in the American economy. They also control 30% of corporate treasury bonds. So this protectionist kind of mentality that Trump has espoused during the election, certainly it sounds good. I don't know how you could effectively make something like that happen. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Richard.
Good morning. Thank you.
Great show. You guys are running it.
Thank you.
Has it been brought up, and I need your opinion, President Obama was in Ann Arbor on Monday. I'm going back to the beginning of the show.
Yes.
Do you think, I had a conference with the grandkids and their friends on Wednesday, and we got really deep in the conversation about the election. Do you think if they had brought President Obama to Detroit to possibly Ford Field, brought in someone like, who did they say, Drake? That's a rapper that they said would have got the young people out.
Yes.
And on Tuesday, they would have still had that warm and fuzzy feeling and told their friends about it. And that 13 to 16,000 votes that Hillary lost by in Michigan could have been resolved here in the city of Detroit.
Yeah,
What's your opinion if they had brought Obama here?
Because I really think that there was some internal polling that was taking place. That was a little different than the polls that Mammoth and some of these colleges were doing, some of the CNN and MSNBC were doing. I think that there was some internal polling that was actually taking place where they saw that there was going to be a problem. That's why they had Beyonce and Jay-Z out, and then they had what is the guy Born in America guy?
Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi and the other guy that was with him. That's why they had these folks out, and they were trying to create this kind of fuzzy excitement, I guess, where it would translate into people going to the polls, but it just did not happen. I almost felt a little embarrassed, and maybe that's not quite it, but little something for President Obama when he made the plea, you got to come out and protect my legacy. That was a strange thing for a president to say,
Richard.
But it
You're
was.
Right. You need to drain the swamp because, Richard, the man was in Ann Arbor. I was so angry. I tried to call in on your show Wednesday because to me that was an insult. You're in Ann Arbor.
Whoa, I understand what you're saying. That's right.
You cannot come to Detroit, okay? That would have brought the young people out, okay? We voted for Hillary, but ever since the early 70s, I've always worked campaigns, Okay, I did not work this. I didn't even know where her campaign headquarters, and a lot of people don't know where her campaign
isn't that
headquarters
amazing?
is. Okay, with Obama, the Boulevard and the Lodge Freeway with that big old sign up there. They had to pay people to do phone banking. Have you ever heard of that?
Right. See, I didn't know.
Okay, also the National Popular Vote Compact. You were talking about that, and I'm going to take 1 second. You can go online to the National Popular Vote Compact. There are 13 states that already have the Electoral College.
Okay.
Where you can, where the popular vote, electoral would have to use the popular vote. They need 25, and it will not have to be in a constitutional amendment.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to reiterate that.
Well, and I'm glad. I'm glad you further defined that for me, because that is important. But you know, we never will eliminate the layer that was really established by Alexander Hamilton, which says that you cannot leave an important decision, as important of a decision to elect a president, to the populace, to women, to blacks.
Okay, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but so if a state gets the popular vote goes to one candidate, the Electoral College, which they said meets on the second Wednesday.
They will meet on the first Monday after the second Wednesday in December.
Okay, so if the popular vote goes to, how do they decide? That part I still don't get.
But and see, and it's based on what the commitment is, and the rule associated with it. For example, John Conyers may have to cast his vote for Trump, because we are one of those states, I think, that actually ties in the vote of those members of the Electoral College to what the popular vote is. But again, you said 13. I say 14.
It's not according to. So how did they know on Tuesday night when they were going this state red, they had already committed before we got out and voted?
No. It has to be established, and it's why it's in December, because they're giving everybody a chance to count all of the votes on the first Monday after the second Wednesday. I gotta go. I'm sorry.
Bye, Richard. Bye-bye.
I appreciate the call. Always a great call, Dee Dee. Callers, I'm sorry, I can't get to you. The great Brenda Perriman is in studio, and I need to move on. I do appreciate your call this morning. I'll be back Monday, however, and I appreciate you, of course. So God bless you until then. Again, stay tuned. The great Brenda Perriman is up, and I will see you on Monday. Thank you.
W33BY, Detroit, Highland Park, Michigan.